SBC Media.
Welcome to iGaming Daily, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe. Supported by SBC Summit Latino America, bringing together the leadership teams and product specialists from retail and online operators in Latin American markets.
Discover the potential of Latin America's booming iGaming and sports betting markets at SBC Summit Latin America, the premier industry event in the region. Join SBC at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Miami from October 31st to November the 2nd. Register now at sbcevents.com.
Earlier this week, Brazil's President Lula da Silva signed the provisional measure that will regulate the sports betting industry in Brazil. While the Congress now has 120 days to analyse the projects and finalise the details, this is now seen as the final step that the Brazilian market needed to become a regulated entity. In general, the provisional measure doesn't change much from what we've previously mentioned in past episodes of the podcast when delving further into the current state of the Brazilian market. But on today's episode of iGaming Daily, sponsored by SBC Summit Latino America, we'll be discussing the things that have changed, such as taxing and revenue expectations. And joining me today are none other than Lucía Mouriño and Isadora Marcante. Hola to you both.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm excited about this project, yeah.
Have you been enjoying the World Cup, though?
Oh, yeah. I mean, my sleeping schedule is messed up, but, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Isadora, how are you? You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you. How are you guys?
Yeah, I'm good. Are you enjoying the World Cup?
Yeah, actually, I don't have time to watch it because I sleep very early. I'm quite like an old lady.
You should watch Brazil because your team is doing great.
Yes, I have to. I've been seeing some videos and some news about that, and the ladies are rocking it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've only managed to catch 3 games, Australia and New Zealand with the first 2. And then I managed to catch England, which wasn't the most convincing of performances, to be honest.
Yep, no.
But I'm sure the Lionesses will do us proud, at least get out of the group stages anyway. But that is not why we're here today. We're here to talk about Brazil. So let's get back on track. So I'm going to start with quite a broad question for you both. And Lou, I think... No, Isadora, we'll come to you first. Lou, you can go second. This latest news, what does it mean for the industry in general?
Well, it means a lot, actually, to have a provisional measure that's been discussed for the past 7 months and now is signed and published is really good. We needed that for the market to be regulated and to have like the best practices in place, especially with the increase of digital influencers promoting fake websites and fraudulent websites, which is not good actually for Brazil, neither for the customers. So it's great that we finally have a provisional measure that is in place, and let's hope that the further steps will be faster than it was to publish this provisional measure.
Perfect. And Lou, anything to add?
Yeah, I think it changes everything. It is a game changer. We've said this many times, but why not once again, right? Brazil has that's something that other countries don't. It's passionate about sports, but on a whole different level. You might see it in other Latin American countries. You might see it with football in some European countries, but not like this. The interest in every single sports event is unmatched. Even more if we take into account that it's the 7th biggest country in terms of population and the 2nd in America, only behind the US. It might sound silly to mention this like over and over again, but it makes a difference when operators need to decide which territories they want to be in. These things matter, and at the moment I can't think of a single market more interesting than Brazil.
Mm-hmm. And no, I completely echo that. And kind of that broad question of what does this mean for the industry, and things will change from now until March next year, but we will kind of get a more in-depth scope of that market when we have our SBC Summit Rio that was recently announced last week. So this is big news, and no doubt once we get to SBC Summit Rio, there'll be even more bigger news to address. But just on this specifically, what are kind of the biggest changes between the details from the provisional measure that we discussed in May to the one that got approved this week? And Lou, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, so the taxes changed, and so did the number of licenses. Well, the number of licenses didn't actually change. We got confirmation of how many there will be, but let me get into that in a bit. So the taxes for operators increased from 16 to 18% on GGR, because instead of sending a 1% to the Ministry of Sports, the government will send a 3%. It's been just a couple of days, but I haven't seen much complaining about this increase. Like, yeah, we can get into that later. Like, Brazil, if things stay the same, it will be one of the countries with the highest taxes for operators and also for players. Isa will be able to talk about that a little bit more. But going back to the number of licenses, when this whole process started, it was believed that each state was going to have a specific number of licenses based on the population. For example, Rio and Sao Paulo would have more licenses than smaller states. And the provisional measure now says that there's actually not a limit on the number of licenses, and that whoever gets one will be able to operate both online and at a land-based level. And that's huge, because at some point, people were expecting Brazil to have only 30 licenses. And obviously, if you have a huge market with a lot of interest from like offshore operators, then you were putting that market at risk of getting at some point a bigger black market than the legal one. Because again, everyone wants to operate there. And if they don't have the chance, then obviously they're still going to do it. Like, let's be realistic here. They're still going to do it. But now if you have an unlimited number of licenses, everyone gets a shot.
Yeah, anything to add, Isadora?
What I can see in social media and some discussions around like sports traders and punters and the sports betting community, they are not very happy with this 30% tax. It's actually high, I must say. It's and I don't believe, especially with the amount that you will only pay 30% on the winnings if you win more than 2,112 BRL. But still, 30% is a lot. People are not happy with this percentage, and they are already questioning if the offshore companies will be prohibited to operate in Brazil. So it's quite of a chaotic moment here regarding this, but we didn't see anything related to the 18% on GGR for operators.
And spoiler alert, the offshore operators without license will still operate.
Yeah, definitely. It will.
I think, like at some point, the Ministry of Finance and other authorities will need to review how they prevent these companies from operating, because it'll be a mess. Because like Isa said, like players will be interested in other sites if the taxes are too high.
Yes, especially here.
Yeah.
We have so many sports traders in Brazil. It's like a profession here now. So it won't be good.
Mm-hmm. Just a quick question for you both. Why, for your thoughts, why do you think they've gone for 30% in terms of tax? Why is it so high? Why do you think it's so high, Lou?
I think they were like looking into some European countries and how they handle things. And I actually had this discussion with someone on LinkedIn yesterday, and they were saying like they need to review some things, they need to prohibit some other stuff. And I think in general in life, you can compare LATAM to Europe. But mainly because like the size of the country, come on, like obviously it'll be easier to regulate something and to control something in a smaller country like, I don't know, let's say Italy, let's say Netherlands. Like of course they have a lot of population, but they're still smaller countries compared to Brazil. Brazil is like the 7th biggest country in the world. how do you control that? So I think by setting up higher taxes and doing these things and introducing like advertising rules, eventually introducing advertising rules, it's a thing, like it's a way for them to control some stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's impossible to compare with Europe.
And Isadora, do you kind of echo that, or have you got a different thought process?
No, I agree 100%. We have this, how do you say it? Like it's usual for us to charge a lot of taxes. Like Lou said, we will be, if we keep this 18% and 30%, we will be like one of the highest countries, one of the countries with the highest taxation in iGaming. And we know, like in Brasilia, when I was at the Summit Integrity sports integrity event, they were mentioning, they were like looking up to the UK rules and how UK were doing things. So yeah, I think they're like Lou said, they're just like comparing Brazil to European markets, especially the UK. But we are very different markets. We have a very different people and a very different way of dealing with sports betting. So I don't think if the Congress approve this, I don't think they will, maybe they will change this later on. Maybe they will hopefully reduce the percentage.
And from a personal perspective, I think it's a huge mistake to follow what, for example, the UK did. Obviously, you can see what they've done and if it worked and like see the UK as an example of things like what you want to achieve, because it is one of the most mature markets out there, if not the most. But at the same time, because it is one of the oldest and let's say the most important market at a global level in some ways, you can aim to be that in your first year of operations, and not even before the regulation. Like it's too big of a goal. You know what I mean? Like you should be trying to do something less big. Let's put it like that, because Brazil is not the UK. I don't mean that in like it's not better, it's not worse. It's just completely different. There's no way to follow what the UK has been doing if you're Brazil.
Yes, and in Brasilia, Genius Sports was there, and they mentioned that if Brazil follows every single step that the UK did in the past, we're going to face the same problems in the future. So
I think it's going to be worse because it's so much bigger.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. When I say it's not the same applies for the UK. Like the UK eventually would not be able to do the same that Brazil did.
Exactly.
Because it's so different. Yeah. No, they're so different that it's impossible.
Mm-hmm. And kind of just going on to the taxations, if they remain at 30%, you know, Isadora, you mentioned they could potentially go lower in the future. If they get reevaluated, who knows? But if it sticks at 30%, could this kind of stop or hinder companies from entering the country? Would it make them think twice? Because Brazil's such a big market and it's got such huge potential. Could this kind of hinder it?
I don't think operators will not want to come here. I don't think that will happen because, like you said and like Lou said, it is a big market. It is a potential market and has a huge potential actually to become one of the biggest markets in the world. So I think if they stick to 30% to the players, we'll probably have just like more people not declaring their earnings in the tax system that we have here. That's going to happen. Like this already happens here. Of course, it will happen with the sports betting market too. But either they will go lower, or they will. There's a possibility of reducing the exemption amount that you can earn and not pay the tax. So right now it's 2,112 BRL, but if they see that they're not collecting what they expected to collect, or they're facing problems, they can even lower that amount as well. So I think that we can see both of those things happening. Like it's hard to predict if they will reduce the percentage of, or if they will reduce the maximum amount you can earn without paying taxes.
And just for a kind of legal clarity, iGaming Daily is not promoting operators to fiddle with their taxes in Brazil.
It's just like a reality here.
Perfect. Lou, anything to add on that?
Yeah, about the increase from 16 to 18%, I don't think it will stop companies from entering the country. Like, I think the benefits of being in Brazil are bigger than the disadvantages around higher taxes. Like, are you going to tell me that huge companies like Betson, I don't know, Betfair, Betano, Codere, Bet365 won't actually want to enter the country because of this 2% change? If anything, it will hurt small operators, but I already expect a wave of M&A activity. Some of the smallest operators, will probably get acquired by international operators. So basically, they won't struggle as much as we can expect. However, there is a point made by Brazilian operators and like industry stakeholders that this changes things. I think the government can expect some resistance to this increase, but overall, no, it won't prevent companies from entering the country.
Mm-hmm. And kind of just to wrap this up now, earlier on in the podcast, we mentioned that Congress now has 128 days to finalise the details. Can you just explain both these why they have this certain allocation to finalise this agreement?
Yeah, it's just like it's a constitution matter. So the constitution here states that a provisional measure has the force of law from the moment it's published and is a prerogative of the president. And this provisional measure, it's important to mention, it can only be created in the case of importance and urgency, and it must be immediately submitted to Congress for approval. So Congress has 60 days, extended for another 60 days to vote on it. But if the provisional measure, if the original text of the provisional measure changes, it will proceed as a law of conversion and not as a provisional measure anymore. So it's just like a constitutional matter. That's it. Like it's just 60 plus 60 days.
Okay, perfect. That's kind of everything we've got time for. And I think we say it every time we talk about Brazil. There's going to be updates. There's going to be frequent updates with this market because it's growing. We say it's taking its time a little bit, but there's always updates pretty much every week. And if there's any updates, please keep checking SBC Noticias/BR for all your Brazil news. We'll put any links to the story talked about in the podcast today in the description below. Isadora, Lou, thank you for joining us to go through these latest updates, and to our listeners out there, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of iGaming Daily, brought to you in conjunction with SBC Summit Latino America, being held at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Miami on the 31st of October to the 2nd of November. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network. Happy reading.